I love getting up in the morning and working out and finding other ways to take care of myself as far as drinking green juice, I think is really important. Getting the live cells and enough water, hydration.
Absolutely.
Um, when you align all these blocks that your body needs, then you almost feel supercharged. Like you had mentioned, you jump out of bed and have so much energy.
But there's a core, and I always say that there's core fundamental things that we need to be taken care of, that need to be taken
Hmm.
care of,
Hmm.
right? It's sleep, it's
Yeah.
nutrition, it's exercise, and
Hmm.
it's mental capital, right? Those are the core things that before you start reading self-help books and going to retreats, whatever you do, that's got to be the core of everything,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the only way we can actually, quote unquote, be optimal,
Hmm.
right? And listen,
Right.
nobody's perfect, right? I
Mhm.
always say precision over perfection. But if we're intentional about those four pillars, right? And
Mhm.
that's not in the 55th self-help book you read, chapter 16. These are just core fundamentals.
Yeah.
If we allow ourselves to just do those.
And um, I love getting up in the morning and working out and finding other ways to take care of myself as far as drinking green juice, I think is really important. Getting the live cells and enough water, hydration.
Absolutely.
Um, when you align all these blocks that your body needs, then you almost feel supercharged. Like you had mentioned, you jump out of bed and have so much energy.
But there's a core, and I always say that there's core fundamental things that we need to be taken care of, that need to be taken
Hmm.
care of,
Hmm.
right? It's sleep, it's
Yeah.
nutrition, it's exercise, and
Hmm.
it's mental capital, right? Those are the core things that before you start reading self-help books and going to retreats, whatever you do, that's got to be the core of everything,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the only way we can actually, quote unquote, be optimal,
Hmm.
right? And listen,
Right.
nobody's perfect, right? I
Mhm.
always say precision over perfection. But if we're intentional about those four pillars, right? And
Mhm.
that's not in the 55th self-help book you read, chapter 16. These are just core fundamentals.
Yeah.
If we allow ourselves to just do those.
Mhm. Well, I really want to thank everyone for joining today and being here, especially our guest, Mr. Evan Marks. And he's an amazing coach, founder of the M1 Performance Group of late. And he started out in the investment hedge fund world. And so I'm really excited to have you here, Evan. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Well, Carl, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I kind of like to start with people's background and how they got going, and since I do call it define your purpose. Maybe when you started to discover your purpose, and I guess it was first when you started studying investment, right?
Well, actually not. It's
Okay.
funny. The more and more I do podcasts and these sort of things, I get to reflect a bit more. And
Okay.
as I look back at my quote unquote formative years, I was very fortunate to have an incredible mom, but I never had a dad around.
Mm.
And he'd show up here and there, but like not for the big things or actually little things. And I always realized, like, I was always surrounded by great coaches and great men.
Mm.
Like, and I was very fortunate to have that. And I think
Mm.
early on, before I went to University of Pennsylvania and to Wall Street, and I'll get into that, I always admired great coaches. I think there
Mm.
was something I looked up to them. And I always
Mm.
wanted to be a coach and an educator.
Mm.
Always.
Mhm.
But circumstances took me different ways, in a different route than I
Mm.
originally thought. I went to University of Pennsylvania and
Mhm.
I played Division I lacrosse there for a short time. I blew my knees out twice, but UPenn is an incubator for Wall Street. But I
Mm.
always in the back of my mind, I'm like, I love being around people. I love knowing what makes them tick, not only to motivate them, but to actually understand them.
Mm.
But I got thrown into Wall Street, right, which is one of the greatest performance games of all time. Where else do you have to be comfortable with uncertainty and very confident in your behavior and your actions and responses? But it was always this nagging thing, Carl, like, man, this is not what you want to do. This is not
Oh,
what
yeah.
you want to.
Mm.
But I spent 23 plus years managing money. But always that nagging thing. I knew, I don't want to get so, but like I knew something was wrong. Like it's not what I
Mm.
wanted to do. And I don't think it was a matter of chasing money, but it was proving something that I had to prove to myself. And after spending 23 years on Wall Street, I had the opportunity to get into coaching. I had an ex-coach of mine who asked me to come, and we had a drink, and she's like, "What are the odds?" And it was something I've always wanted to do.
Mm.
But I was 46 years old. I had a terrific career managing money, and I know now, when we talk about fears, there's fear of rejection, fear of embarrassment, but the
Mhm.
greatest fear of all is regret. So I remember sitting there, I was
Mm.
talking to my
Yeah.
wife, and I have an identical twin brother. I'm like, if I don't do this, I may regret this forever.
Mm.
And I said, you know what? I'm about to take a 99% pay cut to try this out and go back to school at 46. So what
Right.
happened actually was before that happened, when I moved, I have two daughters and we moved to the burbs. And I was going to the city back to work, when I was working on Wall Street. And I thought I had a heart attack. But in actuality, it was a massive panic attack, but I didn't know it at the time.
Mm.
So I remember getting back home. It's almost like I had 27 martinis, getting back to my kitchen, hanging out to the island of the kitchen. I'm like, something's wrong here.
Mm.
And I remember them figuring I didn't have a heart attack. But I remember the next day I saw a neurosurgeon because something had happened. And he said to me, "You've done so much damage to yourself that you should honestly think about maybe possibly becoming a teacher or a coach."
Wow.
Teacher or coach? That ship has sailed. But it's amazing how, as a child, even as a teenager, I always wanted to do this.
Mm.
So I'm like, how am I going to do this? I looked at my wife. She's like, you got to make a decision. And I was so fortunate that an old coach of mine called me up and said, what are the odds you come work with me?
Mm.
I went back to school at 46 years old. And then
Right.
6 months later, going to school in modern psychoanalytical theory and taking courses in neuroscience,
Mm.
I started coaching Hendrick Motorsports, which is the greatest NASCAR team, and Jimmy Johnson and his pit crew teams. 6 months later. And now
Awesome.
I'm 52 years old, and this is what I do for a living. So I had the opportunity to start at the top, and the woman I work with was terrific, and she was an incredible mentor of mine. But I realized also I had my own style, and that's why in January this year I started my own company. But this is one of those things where it came full circle,
Mm.
and I'm so grateful. And it took courage, and I have to give myself some credit because I had two little girls at the time. We all
Mhm.
build, we have things
Right.
we've got to do in our lives.
Mm.
And I said, if I don't do this, I will never fulfill what I really want to do with myself, which is, I know it sounds very altruistic, is serve others, help others. Because I knew the pain I went through
Mhm.
throughout my life, in my struggles,
Mhm.
right? It may be different than others, but it was mine. And then I had the opportunity to do this. And Carl, I took that ball and ran with it. And it's been one of the most incredible experiences of my life. My wife's like, you look so different. I said, I've never felt this way in my life. Like I wake up in the morning, I could light up a city. It's interesting also. It's like we know now in the last couple of years about the spotlight on mental health.
Mhm.
And I'm a mental performance coach,
Yeah.
and how important it
Great.
is. We've moved from a material wealth, big cars, big houses, get bigger, make more money, and we've evolved to this holistic wealth movement, which is I
Mhm.
want a good life,
Right.
I want a meaningful life.
Mhm.
That's not void of going after your dreams, whether it could be money, could be the byproduct, or fulfilling your potential. But I think that the denominator is I want to make sure I'm doing it for me, that I'm healthy, that I'm mentally healthy, that I'm physically healthy, that I want to live this
Mhm.
life to the best of my ability. So I had the opportunity to do this, and I'm very, like I've said before, I'm extremely grateful. It's been amazing. So I'm
Great.
really pumped up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it almost takes that kind of appreciation to be a good coach.
Yeah, I think so. I do agree with that. And I
Gratitude
think
is so important.
sometimes, Carl, you have to
Mhm.
experience it a little bit,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I don't, we'll get, I don't know what your backstory is, but sometimes you have to experience pain/struggle and find yourself
Mhm.
and then work through it yourself, right? We have to, I think we're our own experiments,
Mhm.
and we never got it. But when you start on that path, it becomes extremely interesting. It's the path of openness. It's the path of curiosity.
Mhm.
It's the path of what else can I do? Right. And those days stacked, weeks stacked, years stacked, right? And if we're consistent with what we want to accomplish, and it's not linear, right? It ebbs and flows,
Mhm.
but it's a really, you got one shot at this game. You might as well make it interesting.
Totally. Yeah, and that was kind of kind of a thing that I took on later and discovered later. I'm never going to be a great runner or run, in any race and win anything, but it's going to help me be the healthiest I can so I can accomplish everything I need to. And I never liked running before. I was told I was a bad runner, and but I started doing it on my own, and now I love doing it. And um, I love getting up in the morning and working out, and finding other ways to take care of myself, as far as drinking green juice. I think is really important. Getting the live cells and enough water, hydration.
Absolutely.
um, it when you align all these blocks that your body needs, then you almost feel supercharged. Like you had mentioned, you jump out of bed and have so much energy.
But there's a core, and I always say that there's core fundamental things that we need to be taken care of, that need to be taken care
Mhm.
of,
Mhm.
right? It's sleep, it's
Yeah.
nutrition, it's exercise, and
Mhm.
it's mental capital, right? Those are the core things that
Mhm.
before you start reading self-help books and going to retreats, whatever you do, That's got to be the core of everything,
Yeah.
right? That because that's the only way we can actually, quote unquote, be optimal,
Hmm.
right? And listen,
Right.
nobody's perfect, right? I
Hmm.
always say precision over perfection. But if we're intentional about those four pillars, right? And
Hmm.
that's not in the 55th self-help book you read, chapter 16. These are just core fundamentals.
Yeah.
If we allow ourselves to just do those,
Hmm.
you got a pretty good life. You got a pretty good life if we get
Yeah.
those down,
Hmm.
right? Now, listen, nothing's perfect, like I said earlier, but if we can really hone in on these four pillars, we start building a great foundation,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
You have to take care of yourself first before you can
Yeah,
try to take care of other people, I think, too.
yeah, and you have to want to take care of yourself. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
my coaching practice is
Hmm.
it's merging the why and how together, right? The why is modern psychoanalysis. Why do we do what we do?
Hmm.
Right? Because we know 0 to 15 is our formative years, right? When we're programmed and the circuitry is starting to be built,
Hmm.
and we take on from our caregivers and in our environment, right? And some at this stage, I'm 52, don't serve me any longer. And now we know the neuroscience part is how the brain actually works, where it's a predicting mechanism, right? But we also know about neuroplasticity, where
Yeah.
the brain's always changing, even at 52, right?
Right.
We're able to build new circuitry in our brains through repetition, right? And I know that's
Hmm.
intellectual. So it's almost where psychoanalytical theory is the emotional side, is how do we undo certain things that don't longer serve us, and
Hmm.
understanding the neuroscience side of, wait a second, the brain is amiable. We could actually change the way we do things through repetition, right? But you know what's interesting is that emotions will always be there. Like when
Right.
people say, when I'm happy, I'll do this, it doesn't work that way,
Mm. Yeah.
right? We can't
Mhm.
control our emotions. We can acknowledge them. We have the ability to lower intensity and duration. But the greatest thing we have the ability of is actually choosing our behavior,
Mm.
which quote unquote is obviously sounds like consciousness, right? So my job as a coach, and I think our job as people in general, is to bring the unconscious conscious. So what are the things that are anchoring us to the past that
Mhm.
no longer serve us? How do we acknowledge that, recognize that, bring it to the light? And then how do we change that? So when we go from
Mm.
surviving, which by the way, in the past served us, and how do we say, that doesn't help me any longer? And then how do we shift? Emotions may stay the same, but how do we identify these quote unquote sometimes negative emotions and say, it's just data, but I can actually tie a new behavior to that old emotion or that reoccurring emotion,
Mm.
form a new experience.
Mhm. Right.
We all feel, nobody's void of sadness, embarrassment, shame, anger, rage, all these, they're emotions. But the beauty
Mhm.
of everything is that they carry intensity. But when we
Mm.
become more conscious of what we're doing, we can actually tie a behavior to that, create a new experience that actually forms a new neural pathway in our brain. Saying, when I'm nervous and scared and
Mm.
ashamed, embarrassed and afraid, that's all right. Because now I know what to do.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
almost it's almost like,
Mm.
Carl, you let go of the rope. We acknowledge the tug of war, tugging with the past, and
Mhm.
just let go. Say, I'm all right. I'm allowed to feel
Yeah.
this way.
Mhm. Yeah, we're just finding out now, I think a lot about neuroplasticity, like you said, and how much we actually can learn and change our brain, and how important it is to unlearn too. I definitely agree on that. It's like half of what you need to do to survive is unlearn the things that you don't need anymore.
Right? What served you at 14 and 13 may not serve you at 47.
Mhm. For sure.
Right? And it's important, like not to dismiss what happened in the past, but to acknowledge it
Mhm.
because it happened. Right? I can't hope for a better past. I can't. But to know that I have the power and the capability and the opportunity and the responsibility to create a better present and future, that has to feel good. I'm not saying it's linear, but to know that, wait a second, I actually have the opportunity to do this. There's a possibility that I can change this. And the answer is yes. It's yes philosophical, it's yes psychoanalytically, but it's yes research and actually you can do it. It's been proven. Like this is not kumbaya stuff. Like we have the ability to change.
Yeah.
And I think that's one that's extremely exciting. And two, it's also extremely scary. Why is it scary? Because ignorance is bliss, right? For a reason. It is what it is. I don't have to do anything about it. But when you're not in denial any longer, now it takes intentionality.
Yeah.
Now it's up to you.
Mhm.
And that can be very scary.
Yeah.
And I totally understand that. But as you stack habits, as you stack days, you start to put space between that feeling and evidence of what you're capable of doing.
Mhm.
And then it looks pretty interesting.
Right.
Pretty wild,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like everything that happens to you, you have that moment of choice of how to react to it. And all your reactions so far have gotten you to the place where you are. So if you want a different outcome, then the easiest thing to do is change your own reactions to your environment.
Behavior.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We all feel, we know it, right? I can't control, Carl, how you feel at all.
Mm-hmm.
I can influence it though. If I say something negative that hurts your feelings, it may not be me saying it. I could physically be saying it, but somebody in your past said this to you before. But we all have the ability to pause,
Mm-hmm.
to put space between feelings and behavior,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if I could say something to you that rattles your unconscious, I may be, this is, obviously, I don't know you well enough. I could say something that almost resonates with you like your father said to you, and it just triggers you, or your brother, your sister, your mother, whoever it may be. But to be able to acknowledge that, put space. I'm not saying 14 years. I'm saying a couple seconds. Ask yourself a question. What should I do here? Now that puts you in the seat of influence, right? Now I'm going to become conscious now. And now you start to pick your own behaviors. So it's almost like when Carl gets in a situation where he's scared and he gets triggered, he doesn't go into autopilot. He doesn't go into reaction mode. He doesn't go into fight or flight. He actually has the ability to pause, give himself mental space, saying, what do I want to do here?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very freeing feeling to have control over your behavior. And what happens over in time, because behavior changes before feelings, when somebody says something to you, that trigger, the intensity lessens, the duration lessens, and it's almost like it doesn't affect you as much as it used to.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, but now what you have now is a new behavior that you've been really, really practicing through repetition. And now this new behavior has a new experience, this is what you do. Right. So, it's funny when I spent a lot of time on Wall Street, about 23 years. And my assistant used to always say, "You're always nervous." I said, "Yeah, I'm very nervous. Every day, every day." He goes, "But you don't act it." I said, "That takes a lot of practice." I had to accept what nervousness meant in the past. I want to embarrass myself. What happens if people find out I'm not good? Shame. What happens if I mess up? Anger, frustration. All right, I'm allowed to feel that way.
Mm.
But over the course of practice, I'm allowed to feel nervous. It's just a feeling. But I know when I'm nervous now, I zone in. So nervousness used to be me survival based, like why don't you run away or
Mm.
play it safe or be super cautious, like you don't
Right.
know. But now it's like, wait a
Mhm.
second, that feeling to me means zone in because I've done it
Mhm.
before. I've experienced it so many times.
Right.
So now in my brain, where when I was growing up, there's a pathway, right? There's myelin going around these transmitters and there's modulators and all that. But now I've created a new pathway in my brain where I'm nervous. It's not like I'm small. I'm like, okay, I'm allowed to be nervous. And I'm bigger.
Mhm. Right.
You can couple that with any feeling.
Mhm.
It's really acknowledging, I always say the internals lead the externals. If you really understand the data within, because emotions are just data.
Mhm. Right.
So how do we use them? Joy, anger, it's an emotion.
Mhm.
Would you rather feel joy than anger? I'm sure. But I'm telling you right now, sitting in the pocket of joy is the same time as sitting in the pocket of anger. They come back to the middle. So if
Right.
we know that, we know feelings are just feelings. They come and
Mhm.
go. We have to
Mhm.
treat them like that. But the only way to let them come and go, Carl, is acknowledging them. And
Yeah.
I know that sounds a lot like
Right.
mindfulness, awareness, but
Mhm.
it's true. Because the minute we don't acknowledge, they stay. And what
Mm.
happens
Yeah.
when they stay? They linger. And what
Mhm.
happens when they linger? They grow in intensity. With intensity grows a new narrative or an old narrative, excuse me. And then we stay stuck.
Mhm.
And we
Right.
start repeating the
Mhm.
same behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have
There's a
to,
lot to be said for, being okay with discomfort and letting yourself sit with the discomfort, and because after a while, you just get used to the pressure of it, and you'll find your mind starts to wander, and you because you're used to it, and so any kind of discomfort, really, you can get used to like that. I think the human body is such an amazing adaptation machine. You just automatically respond to get used to anything, really.
yeah, we have to learn how to tolerate.
Mm, right.
Tolerate's a huge
Mhm,
word.
mhm,
Tolerate it. Just tolerate for a little bit.
mhm.
Tolerate
Yeah,
the urge to do something.
right.
Tolerate, acknowledge the just tolerate it. Because if I asked you last Tuesday when you were angry, what were you angry about? You'd be like, was I angry? You don't even remember.
Right, right. Mhm,
We're talking about a short duration that we have to tolerate.
mhm. Yeah.
Maybe a little longer for certain things. But if we could breathe, sit with it, acknowledge it. Remember, you got to acknowledge. If you don't acknowledge it, it goes on the shelf, and then it just sticks around for longer, too long, and then becomes a
Yeah,
story. The
yeah.
minute we bring it
Mm,
to light and we give ourselves permission, right? Like feeling weak, feeling embarrassed, feeling anger, feeling inadequate is not a weakness.
mm,
However, acting
mhm,
on that will hurt your mental capital.
mm. Yeah.
I coach some of the greatest people I've ever met in my
Mhm,
life. Ever met in my life. On paper, you'd be like, why do they need coaching? I said, well, first, if you ever see all high achievers have coaches because they
mhm.
know they
Yeah,
never got it, right? I don't know what got
mhm,
it means. If you got it, I always say it's precision over perfection. There's no such thing as perfection, right? Because
mhm,
perfection is blinders. We're not able to take risk. But
mhm,
when you talk to these people, like you would never believe they have the feelings just like you and I.
mm,
Like everybody. The greatest people you ever met do feel inadequate. They do feel
mm.
shame.
Yeah.
They do feel embarrassment.
Mhm,
We're human beings. It's a human experience. It is. It's funny. Somebody goes to me, they go, that guy's fearless. I say, excuse me? He's fearless. I go, there is no such thing. There is no such thing as fearless. However, in the face of fear, this man, woman, child knows how to behave. There's no such thing as fearless.
Mm-hmm.
We all have fears.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Totally.
And also, I think when you know that, you accept that, and that's not an excuse. It's just truth. But to know the truth also that we have the ability to change and to pick our behavior, not void of emotions, with these emotions, I think gives you that sense of like, all right, I'm allowed to feel this way.
Mm.
But watch what I do with it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for intention too. Your intention dictates so much of what your outcome is in so many things. So
You
just
know,
by changing that, you can change your outcome lots of times, I think.
I agree with you. You know, I always say you have to slow down to speed up. And
Mm.
slowing down doesn't mean taking your foot off the gas. Slowing down means the skill of intentionality,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Really building a foundation that you can leverage off of, right? So if we
Mhm.
don't slow down to dot the I's, cross the T's, am I sleeping well? Am I eating well? Am I being proactive, not reactive?
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't know, and that's really being intentional.
Mhm.
Because once we build that, I don't know how long it takes. Once we're able to build that found, we can leverage off it. That's the speed up.
Mm.
Now, I can't tell you intentionality takes 16 minutes because it doesn't. Right? I don't want to make assumptions. I don't know how long it takes. But like you're saying, Carl, when we're intentional, we're laying bricks to build an incredible foundation
Mhm.
that we can leverage off of.
Mhm.
Intentionality is
Yeah.
I think is one of the greatest words ever. Right? Because it's
Yeah.
a behavior.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like you said, foundation to build off of. You need consistency and I think and um, anything that you're trying to create. Even if you're just trying to build a house, you need some kind of schedule to have the work done. And
Yeah. Well, you need structure too. Yeah.
Mhm.
But you know what's interesting also, Carl, is that, when we talk about foundational building, it takes consistency.
Mhm. Right.
But as you build that, you have evidence of what you're capable of doing.
Mhm.
Right? So now you have consistency plus evidence. Right? I've done this. I can see it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like I'm getting better. And what does that build? It definitely builds a beautiful house. But more importantly, mentally, it builds confidence. So
Mhm.
consistency with evidence. You need
Mhm.
evidence. Otherwise, it's fluff.
Mhm.
Builds confidence.
Right.
But not
Right.
the type of
Discipline.
confidence. Yeah, discipline.
Mhm.
It's that humbleness. I've worked hard to do this. I
Mhm.
was so intentional. This is what I've done. I have the right to be confident because I've done this.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that's an inner confidence.
Mhm.
Right? I'm not saying arrogance. We know is insecurity, right? But have that under the radar confidence that you believe in yourself. It's almost like give me the ball
Yeah.
in the last 20 seconds of the game. I
Mhm.
got it. I've practiced. I've been intentional. I've been training.
Mhm.
I want it. That's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you have to be a billionaire to this. You can do whatever you
Mhm.
find fulfilling in your life.
Mhm. Yeah.
Confidence is incredible because there's evidence to prove that back your behavior, and it's there for you to see.
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? And the great byproduct of that is that it's very validating. Like internal validation
Mhm.
is so important because a lot of kids are not validated,
Yeah.
right? What we also do as parents to validate our children, but sometimes we're not. So external validation is important. I'm not dismissing that,
Mm.
but internal validation trumps all.
Mm.
Trumps
Yeah.
all.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you know, discipline is just a matter of showing up for yourself when you might not feel like it, and doing it on the days when you don't want to. It's really comes down to that simple a thing, I think, lots of
I think
times.
I agree with you, Carl. It's that simple. Doing it when
Right.
you don't want to do it,
Hmm.
and you still do it. I think
Right.
that just builds character.
Mm. Yeah.
I think that alone, by the way, what you just said, could be one of the most important things.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. What you do when nobody's around, nobody's looking, that's the stuff that matters.
Yeah.
That's what
I mean,
what ends up making your whole thing at the end of the
yeah.
your reputation and your
It becomes
character.
your personal fabric of who
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
Like, we spend most time with one person,
Hmm.
yourself. So
Hmm.
when you start to trust yourself, that actually your word to you means something.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Like we talked earlier about validation. Man, what is more precious than that?
Hmm.
I'm doing this
Right.
anyway. This is what I'm doing. And that's not selfish, that's selfless.
Mm.
Because what happens along the way is that people can feel that energy. People
Mhm.
respect that. People want to model that. And that's
Mhm.
great
Yeah.
behavior. And that's not being dismissive of being kind to people, obviously, and all the things we should be doing. But when you are a number one priority in your life, the ripple effect from that with a healthy ego
Mhm. Mhm.
is just affects so many.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because then everybody else can count on you. If you can count on yourself
Yeah.
to always be there and do what you said, then everybody else realizes that after a while too.
It's interesting you say that. Somebody asked me once, how do you define success? And I thought about it for a while. And I said, to me, success is doing what I say.
Mm.
Let me doing what you say. I choose very carefully what I say. But if I do say it, I'm going to do it.
Mm.
They go, that's
Yeah.
success? I said, yeah. I said, success to me is trusting myself.
Mm.
Like after the cars and the houses and stuff like that, the utility wears off. I got to be with me. I want to know what I'm about.
Yeah.
I want to know I can live anywhere, be with anybody. But there's only one person who's constantly traveling in all those things. It's me.
Mm. Right.
So I have to be able to trust myself on what I do and say.
Mm. Yeah.
And to me, that's extremely important.
Right. Mm.
How do you define success?
Um, I think it has to do with fulfilling your purpose, whatever you decide that is.
Right. What is your purpose then?
Um, to help other people.
To serve others.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I really like helping people to achieve more and become the best version of themselves. Um, both my parents were professors, and their parents were teachers, and I think there's been tons of generations of teachers in my family, so like dynamic is kind of bred in at this point or something.
It's in the DNA,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But there is a sense of fulfillment in that. I
Mm.
think, I believe, not I think I know. when you see others succeed,
Mm-hmm.
it's very empowering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I
Because
think.
they always say, like they say comparison is the thief of joy, but it's not. It's
Mm,
actually, when
mm,
we model other
mm,
people,
yeah.
I like the way you talk, Carl. I like the way you're running your game. I don't need to be you, but I can take an aspect of, I like how he's doing. I want to put that into my game. I think it can help me. Modeling others is not bad. Comparing
Mm,
ourselves to others in a healthy way is not bad.
mhm,
Envy is danger, right? Because envy is
yeah.
is a play off inadequacy, is a play off
Mhm,
scarcity, right?
mhm.
And
Right. Yeah.
even though intellectually there's no truth to that, but there's an emotional component around that. But when we model people that we respect, I'm not saying modeling being 100% them, but I like a little piece of that. I like
Mhm,
the way you did that. That
mhm.
kind of fits into my game,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
You're admiring part of that person's brilliance as
Yeah,
opposed
there's
to
nothing wrong with that.
like, yeah, the envy that you say is when people start thinking with their snake brain and they want he has what I want. That should be mine.
Yeah, it's true.
That's the difference, I think.
And I had a group coaching session earlier today, and we discuss all about this stuff. They're
Mm,
terrific, and
nice.
it's one of those things where modeling is important when you're on your journey,
Mm,
right? When we
yeah.
know that we're doing days are stacking, we're doing what we have to do, and you start to take. I know what I'm doing. I know I'm committed to this process, right? They always say, "What's the difference between high achievers and non-high achievers?"
Mhm,
Well, non-high achievers are interested in success. They're interested in evolving. They're interested in getting better. But the people who excel, the high achievers, are committed to it.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you're committed to it, it's a
Mhm,
reflection on yourself and what can I learn? There's a sense
mhm.
of curiosity.
Right.
Like Carl, I
Yeah.
love you have this great podcast. Man, how'd you do that? I love the way you speak. I'm like, I'm not you, but I like what you're doing. I don't need to reinvent this thing. But do you mind if I ask you a couple? Because I'm very curious. I
Mhm,
love the way you're
mhm.
running your game. I'm Evan Marks, right? I'm Evan. You're Carl. I get that, but I like what you're doing. What's
Mhm.
wrong with that? I'm not dismissing
Yeah.
who I am as a person,
Mhm,
but I'd like to learn more,
mhm.
right? I think that's terrific.
Yeah. Yeah. I think curiosity is like love almost that
Yeah.
you're having that interest and showing that interest is kind of a care and that you're expressing care about somebody if you're curious about them.
Well, curiosity is information seeking, right?
Mm.
So
Mhm, mhm.
information
Yeah.
could be intellectual, it could be spiritual, it could be relationships, it could be whatever it is, but it's like you're open,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
we talk about love. Love is open, being open,
Right.
right? Because you can't just we get hurt sometimes, we don't get hurt sometimes, we find love, we fall. There's so many things, but to be open to things, to
Mhm.
be
Yeah.
curious for things is a great place to be. And
Mhm.
then we have to accept that we may get hurt.
Mhm. Right.
But what's that old adage? I would have never loved to love than to love at all, right?
Mhm. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cliche is a good reason, but it's
Right.
true.
Yeah. It's are you coming from a place of fear or scarcity or abundance and healing
Yeah. And
and
then we
growth?
talk about mindset, right? Mindset's so
Mm.
important. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm
For
not
sure.
a positive psychology guy at all because I do believe in reality. I do believe in opportunity and being optimistic. I want to know for clients when challenges and hurdles and obstacles and emergencies come down the pipe, we can handle it. While we have to deal with reality, it doesn't mean not having a positive mindset. Saying, you know what, this is
Mhm.
happening. I need to find stable ground. Okay, what do I need to do now?
Right.
Right, that's a good mindset to have.
Mhm.
think that I'm going to sit on my couch eating chocolate bonbons and manifesting I'm going to have $1 million in my bank account tomorrow is useless.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. That's where people end up.
Anything without action is still there's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
true.
think manifesting is real, though. I mean, people
Oh,
are
100%.
capable of manifesting amazing things, but it's you have to manifest the path to get there, not the final result.
I'm so glad you said, manifesting actually has neurological benefits, right? Because
Mm,
remember, the brain's in
right?
the dark, right? There's
Mm,
so many books that, like, there's research behind manifesting.
mm,
You take manifesting, I see this, and you take manifesting, couple that with visualization,
mhm, right?
seeing it. One's believing, one's seeing.
Mm,
That is, and by the way, that is not positive psychology either. That is a mental technique of rehearsal. It's mental rehearsal.
mm,
It's feeding yourselves the right words, right? Who are we feeding? The wolf or the dog? We feed the
mhm,
dog, right? Healthy. And we start to visualize it. The brain doesn't know.
mhm,
It
right?
doesn't. I mean, there have been so many studies about concert pianists and athletes, this and that. The more we get it, now we're talking about technique, the more we're able to slow ourselves down, be intentional, but actually slow or, down regulate and start to visualize, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with Carl today. How do I want to feel? I am this. All right. I see it playing out this way. I'm calm. I'm excited. I'm happy.
Mm,
Right? Start to visualize this ahead of time. It's an invaluable tool.
mm, right?
Just not
Yeah.
manifest. Say, all right,
Mhm.
I want be a millionaire tomorrow. Doesn't work.
Mhm.
Right? You have to imagine that you have to visualize the steps.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. And it's real, actually. It works.
Mhm,
I'm
right?
not guaranteeing
Mm,
crap, right? But it's a great mental model to use. It only
mhm,
can help your odds. I can't
yeah,
guarantee that it works 100% of the time, but it starts to put you in a mindset to serve you, to help you,
mhm, yeah.
to further
Yeah.
you on your journey. Yeah.
I think that's why talking about your goals is so important, or maybe another reason to that helps you visualize the pathway to get there, just by talking about where you want to be and explaining it. The
It's a path to clarity. Yeah.
pieces start to come together.
Yeah. But like, I think all this, everything has to be wrapped with action.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
takes conscious action to do this.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think a belief system is invaluable, but without action,
Hmm.
right?
I
To
think it was
decide,
Socrates said the purpose of knowledge is action. The
yeah.
purpose of knowledge is not knowledge; it's action.
I have a friend of mine named Craig Siegel, and I don't know if he coined this, but it was pretty brilliant. COI. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? The cost of inaction.
Mm.
Like, you know what ROI means, right?
Yeah.
Rate of return and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But CO, the cost of inaction.
Yeah, that's great.
That's great, isn't it? I heard it a couple of
Yeah.
days ago. I got to send him a
Yeah.
text because it definitely resonated with me.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. What am I losing by not exercising?
Yeah.
You start thinking like that, it seems crazy then. You're like, "Wow, what am I doing?"
Right. But you know what's so interesting about that? We can go on for hours. But there's a secondary gain by not exercising. So the
Mm,
secondary gain of not exercising, let's say your father didn't exercise and your mother didn't, that you don't want to be better than them. So the secondary gain of not exercising is being loyal to your parents who
mm,
never got better.
mm.
So unconsciously, you don't want to be better than them.
Right.
Pretty wild, right?
Yeah.
There's a secondary gain.
Mm,
So what happens is, we know intellectually what we want to do. We all do. You eat this.
mhm,
Here's the blueprint. Just follow it. You'll be
mhm.
phenomenal, right? You have a great life. Why don't we do it?
Yeah.
Because there's an emotional blanket around it.
Right.
So it's my job to unwind that, to understand it, to untangle it, to
Mm-hmm.
work through it.
Yeah.
Because we know intellectually what we need to do, but why don't
Mm-hmm.
we do it? I
Mm-hmm.
know I should work out five
Right.
days a week, but I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Procrastination isn't the lack of effort. It's actually the fear of a future feeling.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why is that? What are you fearing?
Mm.
And it could be stuff you're like, that's crazy. Evan. You tell me I'm fearing being better than my parents, my father, and my mother. Yeah, that makes no sense. But there's an element of truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
The
Right.
psyche is amazing, Carl. It really is. But
Yeah.
like we said in the beginning of this
Mm-hmm.
conversation, we all have the ability to change.
Yeah.
We just have to be curious that is that a possibility? Even though it sounds wacky.
Yeah.
Like, no way.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way I don't want to be successful. I always want to be successful. Then why is it not showing up in your behavior?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there is a tie to the past. There is an emotional blanket that's keeping you down that we're not recognizing, we're not acknowledging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
The
it
shadow self.
resonates for me.
Call it
I don't
the
know if it
shadow.
resonates for you. I think everybody kind of knows that.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
just have to accept that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would agree. Acceptance is really a really important part of personal growth. You have to
Yeah.
be okay with what got you where you are and realize that those parts of yourself that you might not like are there for a reason too.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that it's good or bad, right? To put a label on it.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think it's important to know that we have this huge capability gap. And if your purpose is to go fill it, you have the opportunity to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's up to you.
Yeah.
But don't ever think you're just stuck. Like this is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. We have more power than anybody else knows, than you know,
Yeah.
than I know.
Yeah.
Right? It just takes this
Definitely.
effort and
Mm-hmm.
good coaching. I'm just kidding. I had to plug that in for us. Yeah.
Nice.
Right? What do they say? You either live to live or live to exist. It's a choice.
Right? Yeah, that's good. So what do you see in the coming year? I mean, I know you're just recently launched your M1 performance group and all. I think that's really neat. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
I started M1 in January after spending 6 years with another coaching group, terrific coaching group. But I knew that I couldn't draft any longer. I had to take the lead.
Mm.
And we just had different ideas about how to do this. So I started M1 in January. I officially launched in February. So it's been like 6, 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you one thing, Carl, navigating social media has been one of my biggest hurdles.
Mm.
But luckily I formed a team around it and stuff like that. That was been interesting. But for M1 now, we're going to be hiring coaches. I have incredible clients who've been with me for some 5+ years. Five
Nice.
plus years, the same clients. And as we build and, because what we do is so different. Like we're marrying the why and the how. We're taking the
Mm.
past meets the latest research and how in order to understand the moment and to leverage the future. Right. So
Yeah.
we're going to start building this team and the demand has been terrific. And I think also, I love this stuff.
Mm.
Like there is, I've been fortunate enough to have a good career, but there is an altruistic part of this. Like I literally love when people do well. I love it. I have people in my town call me, you got to hear what I did. I'm like, tell me. I can't wait to hear. I love when people commit to something,
Mm.
they put the effort in, and the
Mhm.
byproduct is what they want. But I
Mm.
respect the whole sequence before that. You know, there's an interesting. I'll throw a little research at you. There's a case study, not a case, a research out of Harvard that says when we're outcome focused,
Mhm.
our skills are significantly diminished.
Mm.
So when we're focused on the outcome, our skills are diminished. So why not work on? I know process is way overplayed, but when we work on what we need to do to get there, whatever there is, it has more of a profound effect on our brains and our lives and on meaningful and fulfillment than anything else.
Mm.
Than anything else. So for me
Right.
as a coach, right, my job is to form foundations, leverage and stretch my clients. And I love all
Mhm.
aspects of it.
Right.
You know, so I'm very fortunate to be with men and women who want to get better, who
Mhm.
are committed to this. Because
Mhm.
it's not easy, by the way, Carl, right? Obviously, I'm a very
Yeah.
intense individual, right? I don't judge anybody, but so are they, right?
Mm.
We know perfection is not there. We know that motivation is fleeting. So we have to build this intrinsic momentum within
Mhm.
ourselves in order to
Right.
sustain this journey. And I'm not saying to go like this all the time. You know, there's rest and recovery, there's resetting, there's
Mhm.
down regulating, there's emotional awareness, there's awareness of emotional patterns.
Mm.
It takes work, but it also takes downtime to enjoy
Mhm.
what we do. Because if we're not enjoying this and we don't find this rewarding, then why the hell are we doing this?
Yeah.
This isn't a punishment. We got to have a little fun along the way, a little bit of levity, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You get one crack at this game, might as well enjoy it and
Yeah.
work a little bit harder than everybody else.
Right on. I agree. Totally. That's great.
So, what are your goals for the rest of the year?
Um,
What are you
well,
looking to do? What are you looking to accomplish? Maybe not goals, but accomplish.
I'm having some more events around my book, so I'm coming out with some more ebooks to follow up. Um,
What's the next book coming out? The
so
name?
so I'm having one for each chapter of my
That's
book
right.
that I
Great
just
idea,
published.
by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
Can you tell me
Um,
more about that?
so it's called Authentic Self, Your Authentic Self,
Awesome.
and so it's all the different parts of the self, and each chapter ends with some exercises and that you can undertake in kind of your own life to try to improve and be more in touch with your true self. Um,
I like
so,
the fact that you piece it out like that. I think that's brilliant, by the way.
oh, thanks,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah, so I'm gonna have some events around that too, and I'm looking to get put together a coaching group on marketing. So I'm gonna have smaller groups of about 5, I think, and offer help with LinkedIn profile and messaging and whatever else people are looking for help with building their coaching business. And I've wanted to do this for a while, to be able to help coaches, I think. Then,
It's a very tough thing for coaches to understand all that stuff. I know I had struggled with that. So I appreciate that.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you start, it's like all of a sudden you have to do everything at once.
So true.
And it can be daunting. So,
I wanted to run back into my bedroom. Yeah.
right. But I think there's such a demand now, with so much change happening faster and faster in the world, that there's a reason that coaching is here, and that it's so important to people. And so I really want to help more people get coached that way, and by helping more coaches
If I could add to that, because I have a
Mhm.
team now helping me out, but to have a coach teach you and about this whole LinkedIn world and social media in the last 6 months, it has been absolutely amazing for me. I've been
No.
fortunate enough to build a
Mhm.
team around me to help me do this because I knew I couldn't do it alone.
Mhm.
But for other coaches out there, they got to join your group. It has one business wise been incredible,
Mhm.
but more on the selfish side of it. I've met some of the most incredible people ever
Yeah.
around the globe.
Yeah.
I
Right.
had a phone call yesterday with a guy in Mumbai who it was supposed to be a 30-minute call that lasted 2 hours. I'd never met him before. He was a coach. He was a tech entrepreneur. He was one of the most fat. I would have never have met him.
Mm.
And he
Yeah.
reached out to me. I don't know if I don't know what happened, but I was blown away. So for
Yeah.
people who are
Right.
scared to do
Yeah.
this, and by the way, I got to raise my hand because I was
Mm.
within 6 months, which is not a long time. It has been such an invaluable experience
Mm.
that I'm not. I know I felt it sounds like I'm promoting your group here, but I'm telling you, for anybody else, you got to do this.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just taking the time to talk to people.
it's
It's
incredible.
there's no trade-off in business, I think. No substitute.
And you get to learn from others. I think it's incredible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's some
Right.
incredible people on this platform, I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, those are a couple of the things. I mean, I'm trying to continue my podcast, and I think that's going well. So
And I
um,
appreciate you letting me on it. I appreciate that.
all good. Awesome. Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation here today, Evan, for sure. Um, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to
I'm
contact you? Just
actually
on,
going to
on
send
LinkedIn?
you a page, but to get a hold of me
Mhm.
now, it's m1performancegroup.com. I'm
Okay,
on
great.
LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram at emark72. On my website, I have a discovery page. If you come book Evan, I think it's called.
Okay,
Give me a call if you want to wrap.
awesome,
Happy to talk.
awesome,
Yeah,
great, perfect. We'll have to catch up again soon. Maybe I'd love to have another chat with you sometime.
absolutely, Carl. It was a pleasure, man. Have a beautiful rest of the week.
All right, definitely. You as well. Thanks.
Bye. We know now in the last couple of years about the spotlight on mental health.
Mhm.
And I'm a mental performance coach,
Yeah,
and how important it
great.
is. We've moved from a material wealth, big cars, big houses, get bigger, make more money, and we've evolved to this holistic wealth movement, which is I
Mhm.
want a good life.
Right.
I want a meaningful life.
Mhm.
That's not void of going after your dreams, whether
Mhm.
it could be money, could be the byproduct, or fulfilling your potential. But I think that the denominator is I want to make sure I'm doing it for me, that I'm healthy, that I'm mentally healthy, that I'm physically healthy, that I want to live this
Mhm.
life to the best of my ability. So I had the opportunity to do this, and I'm very, like I've said before, I'm extremely grateful. It's been amazing. So I'm
Great.
really pumped up. Yeah.